So, in the process of scripting the Total Dramarama video, there was a lot of stuff I had to cut out to shorten and streamline the video. There's a lot to speak on in terms of the franchise as a whole, which would be good to discuss since it's approaching its 12th birthday quite rapidly. As of now, I've only finished about half of the original seasons, that being Island, Action, and Pahkitew Island, and of course the spin-off series Redonkulous Race and Total Dramarama. But even just based off first impressions, there's always something to like about each and every season.
Eat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Eat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up.
Generally, a few aspects of the franchise have been consistently good with each and every season thus far. The legacy of the show has really carried on well. It's cool to see a 12-year-old Teletoon property still get clout in the current year, especially since most of them don't make it to the 5-year mark. Not only does the franchise still have relatively strong brand recognition, but it still possesses a fan base that still yearns for more total drama stories. It's fascinating to visit such an old fandom that has members talking about it as if it hasn't been soft rebooted a couple times. I think part of that is attributed to the voice actors. These talented folks have been on the front lines of the fandom since forever, engaging the fans and seeking out answers since the series gained traction. As storied and hectic as their lives may get, you can feel the passion exuding from them every time total drama becomes a topic of conversation. As much as this could apply to other projects they've done, it genuinely feels like the show's become an extension of themselves as people, which makes issues like talk of replacement extra contentious. Special props goes to Chris McLean himself, Christian Potenza. I noticed that out of all of the voice actors, he's easily one of the most, if not the most, consistently active person within the fandom. For the past decade or so, he's basically been documenting the course of the show on YouTube. He's gone out of his way to dive straight into the field to track down everyone's favorite voice actors for interviews, and been among the first to promote contests and new season announcements. When he's not busy contributing to the bottomless pit of total drama content, he occasionally puts out videos about voice acting and gaming. It's a sweet little setup to have such a direct line of contact between the fans and the cast. Dude clearly loves what he does and does what he loves, and I can respect that. The fact that the art style hasn't changed in forever gives me life. Like, given how the general style of a decade in animation typically holds up for that long, it's nice to see that the same bold and brash art style maintains its status. So, many of the aspects that make Total Drama great, as mentioned in the Dramarama video, also make Total Drama Island an enjoyable experience for me. I won't run through the whole short list again, but there is one smaller point I wanted to expand on. The slower pace was favorable compared to the later seasons because it allowed the characters to grow in a more measured way. Most seasons have a similar format or having slightly fewer contestants, and there are episodes to make room for filler, like non-elimination challenges. The tone, of course, can accelerate the tempo of the story. Appreciating the first season as it is, the little things like making space for small but personal scenes for each character all add up to memorable world building and character development.
Angie the gopher, where are you? Good. I thought we lost you there for a minute, man. A great pyramid of Giza! Ah! We're all going to die! We're gonna get eaten alive by a bear! Oh, the horror! Somebody help us!
Now on to Total Drama Action. I actually finished this season quite recently thanks to the reruns on Cartoon Network, and personally, I don't think it's as bad as it seems. It definitely runs the gamut in trying to raise the stakes for verse and characterization because of it. Regardless, it's not as nearly as bad as everyone makes it out to be, though one of its most contentious parts would have to be related to the characters. I like that it tried to give underrepresented characters from the previous season a moment to shine, even if it did lead to a bit of character fatigue. In addition, they tried to beef up on development for, at the time, one-dimensional relational arc. The rivalry or odd friendship as we could call it, between Harold and Duncan is a standout moment in this regard. You can tell the writers were trying to raise the stakes, and not just in terms of the challenges. The persistence of Justin's villainous arc, as annoying as it may get, signals the beginning of the series' push to a more stimulating or challenging story at the helm, which is a great goal for the series to work towards. The new environments and locations also contributed to that. On surface level, they may seem a tad simplistic, but the very nature of a new genre each episode allowed the challenges to be a fair match for our contestants. Now on to Total Drama World Tour. Gotta get this out of the way first. The songs are easily the best part. Many of the voice actors, past and present, are accomplished vocalists in their own right, and even if they're not all professional singers, many of them sport a nice set of pipes for their characters. I can't recall a time where a song in World Tour was a chore to listen to. The songs themselves are fairly basic and not always composed or written the best, but the vast amount of style they take on in the process is admirable, and it makes the main story even more enjoyable and chaotic to get through. My personal favorite is perhaps the hottest diss track of all time. Her Name Isn't Blaney. You can't deny that was a fire track, dude. The Alejandro and Heather story arc is a very emotionally involving journey. I didn't initially understand the point of putting the two main antagonists and Cody up against each other so close to the finale. It was only after I understood the rest of the season to understand how we got to that point, and let me tell you, it's kind of poetic in a way. The main message beautifully dovetails off the main good versus evil dispute in a kind of powerful way. It's probably more meaningful if you watch it in real time, but just reading about the implications it has meant a lot to me alone. Also, Noah and Owen's friendship added 7 years onto my meager existence. That's it. Now on to Total Drama Revenge of the Island. I don't know much about this series. This would be one of the 2.5 that I have yet to watch or finish. Watch in general, and people don't seem to talk about it much. I can say that I can appreciate that the show wanted to integrate new characters at this point to freshen up the season. I hear that there are mainly 2 characters that may steal the spotlight, and whether forcefully or otherwise, I can see that there's a lot of potential to work with these characters, even if the writers haven't represented them all that tactfully. Now on to Total Drama All-Stars. So this is the season that most commonly is considered the worst of the worst. I can't personally agree or disagree with that, since this is one of them that I haven't finished. Just from watching some clips of it, I can probably tell it's probably a hilarious season, ironically or otherwise. With the amount of weird directions they go with in terms of character dynamics, you may go through strong cycles of laughter or crying in the process of watching it, and it must be hella entertaining no matter what side you're leaning towards. As a Dunkney supporter, I myself find the whole prospect of the love triangle being brought up again to be a straight-up cringe fest. Additionally, watching Duncan being hit with such a spontaneous identity crisis makes me want to dip my head in Wawanakwa's uber-toxic water. Again, probably hilarious for people who could care less about him or actively dislike him. As misguided as some of these interactions were written previously, I like that the season at least tried to repair one friendship. It's admirable that the team wanted to give that friendship another shot, even if the fandom kept screeching about how far gone the whole situation was, whether in real time or so far into the future. Next up is Total Drama Pahkitew Island. Pahkitew Island has the distinction of being one of Total Drama's budget seasons, with half the episodes and only 14 new contestants. Regardless of whether or not it was actually split to save money, this season, along with All-Stars, presented 2 smaller story arcs in more compact half-seasons. There's a lot to like out of proportion to how big the episode count is. First off, the new characters here are either a vast improvement on what the old characters were left as, or presumably the whole second generation altogether. They're pretty simple character archetypes or pop culture references, but they're almost all likable and capable to an extent. Sean and Jasmine get special mention because they stand out as common fan favorites, but hell, even the Honey Boo Boo XP is one that I surprisingly took a liking to. And as inhumane and torturous as Chris has become by this point, even he had a few moments in this season. The voice actors of this season seem much more seasoned. Not to say that the originals weren't, or the ones from the second generation were, but their filmography is pretty impressive. I was a bit surprised to learn of their histories and the characters that they're attached to. Fresh really, they got a really good cast for this season. I like how well the plot fit in conjunction to the main storyline. 14 brand spanking new contestants arrive on a radiated new island that has no connection to the old one whatsoever. Also, it's mainly robotic, and remote controlled by Chris himself for extra entertainment value. Halfway through the season, the island malfunctions and it's set to detonate unless the remaining islanders can disable the self-destruct feature. The short but sweet story gives the season a bit of oomph, but accounts for most of the world building we got for the trouble. I would have wanted to see a bit more of the island's exterior, since there's only like 3 or 4 locations that we see for the most part. But maybe there wasn't much to see if everything's mechanical. The series end was also pretty satisfying, albeit a bit predictable. By halfway through the season, you could tell where it was leading. No regrets about finishing it, though. Pretty solid.
When I was 6, I fell into a burrowing owl's nest, and one of the baby owls flew into my ear. To this day, everything on this side sounds like... Who? We're constantly fighting adversity and overcoming it. Sorry, we gotta switch sides. You're just... Who?
Last one we got up here is the redonkulous race. This was the first season of Total Drama that I completed, which is ironic because it's not really an actual Total Drama series, is it? Many of the previous points I mentioned also replied to redonkulous in spades. The voice cast is talented, the art direction is great, most of the characters are likable, and the old guard of characters got opportunities to shine. While I wasn't yet acquainted with the franchise's master controller at this point, I found myself quite fond of Don's presenting style after only a few episodes. Despite not going hog wild on the contestants in a break their fragile, meager souls, his acerbic commentary gives him an edge anyway. He's essentially what happens if Garfield inhabited Ryan Seacrest's body. It just has good vibes written all over it. So that is a list. Those are all the things that I like about the Total Drama franchise. As I disclosed, there are 2.5 seasons I have left to finish, that being World Tour, Revenge of the Island, and I guess All-Stars. Yeah. World Tour, Revenge of the Island, and All-Stars. Once I'm done with those, I might just update this video with hopefully more things I like about the unwatched seasons. I started off this script with the intent to praise an info dump about Island and maybe Redonkulous Race, but I quickly found that every season has some degree of likability towards it, which is perhaps quite a rarity. While we can't usually expect our media to be of consistently high quality, it's easier to nitpick and critique them for perceived perfection. Though, with a franchise that spanned decades, there's sure to be something there for everyone. Right?
I got Reese's Puffs in my bowl. Nowadays on cruise control. I got Reese's Puffs in my bowl. And just like that, I'm on a roll. Reese's Puffs, peanut butter chocolate.